Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99, download the free Bonus Round app on iOS, Android, and Roku, and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. In a world where game show imperfections go unchecked, where judgment calls are questionable, and where clocks tick with unsynced inaccuracy, there is but one elite force to investigate it all. Armed with the latest in atomic electromagnetometer and gas chromatography mass spectrometry technology, Game Show Forensics is always on the case. Join Robert McKee and his elite squad of game show scientists as they dive headfirst into the most absurd depths possible at GameShowForensics.com. Adult discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury. Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, one of the largest history museums in the United States, and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700.
Blue 35.
Tell us about yourself, would you?
Tell us something about you.
For any new viewers, won't you tell us again about yourself?
We've met before, but let's meet again. Tell us about
What
yourself.
else can you tell us about yourself?
Perhaps you'd fill us in again and tell us about yourself.
My name is Chris Gage. I am from Philadelphia, and I'm a professional musician, doing church music and teaching college courses.
Perfect. And I'm just getting over a cold, so I might be huffing and puffing through this. If I have a coughing fit, I will mute myself, and I apologize in advance.
All right.
Perfect. Chris, tell me what game shows meant to you growing up before you got the chance to be a contestant. What did this type of TV mean to you?
I have always been fascinated by game shows. Of course, growing up in the 90s, there weren't a lot of game shows to choose from for watching, but regularly Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy and Price is Right, of course, when I was homesick. And game shows were so comforting for me because they just felt everything felt easy watching game shows. Everybody was smooth. The host was smooth. The contestants were ready to go and excited, and everyone was happy. And that was just such a great thing to watch. And then when I was in Texas visiting family friends with my parents, these people had the Game Show Network. And it was
The
just
rest
kind of
is
getting
history.
yeah, and it was kind of getting started showing vintage game shows, and I remember the very first vintage show that I watched that really captivated me was the Match Game from the 70s, and there was Nipsey Russell, and I don't remember anybody else, but I'm sure that all the regulars were there as well.
Sure. Well, Match Game, especially 1970s Match Game, to me, that's the epitome of comfort TV.
Oh,
Match Game
absolutely.
always looks the same, always sounds the same. The guests are different, the questions are different, but you watch Match Game, you know what you're tuning into. And there's something naughty about it. You're kind of being let in on a secret celebrity party. They had that
Yeah.
kind of bawdy sense of humor that just made you feel like you were in on the joke. Which
Well,
I
Brett
thought
Summer
that
said it was more of a social engagement than a job, right?
Well, it's very true. And I think that it's the opposite of what Hollywood Squares was. Hollywood Squares was a fun game, but it didn't have the same atmosphere. There was a barrier, I think, between the celebrities and the contestants. And I think that's because the celebrities on Hollywood Squares were always trying to trick the contestant. They weren't really on your team. You had to figure out if they were lying to you or not. Whereas a Match Game, you're really working, if you're a celebrity, you're working with the contestant to win. There's more of a wholesome kind of connection there.
Right, and Hollywood Squares I never got into, I think for that reason. Peter Marshall was a wonderful host for the show and for the format, but I always thought that the celebrities were just a little bit too ready to go because they had their answers kind of doctored for them, so that never really appealed to me. Of course, I watched the Bergeron version. I enjoyed that a lot, but even the celebrity slates between Match Game and Hollywood Squares were just different. It was a different feel. I didn't really feel quite as at home there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great point too, that Hollywood Squares is very much that setup punchline kind of humor. It's
Yeah.
very Henny Youngman one-liner kind of centric. Whereas
Not
Match
that Paul
Game
Lynn couldn't have made those jokes on his own. I'm sure he could have.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, no critique of Paul Lynde's talent whatsoever. But it was a different kind of humor that it didn't resonate with me the way the humor on Match Game resonates. I think of some of
Yeah.
the funny things that have happened on Match Game, and I could watch those over and over and over
Oh,
again. They're
yeah.
not funny lines; they're funny moments.
Yeah, definitely. Which is why it's especially unfortunate that Mark Goodson really took a chance with the Match Game Hollywood Squares hour to let the celebrities do their own thing, and unfortunately that didn't really work out. And maybe that proved that we do actually need a little help with Hollywood Squares for the punchlines, but more entertaining, really. But the audience knows that everyone is kind of already prepped and ready to go. So I think there's that element as well. No one is really fooled by Hollywood Squares, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, it's light entertainment. My
Exactly.
favorite part, especially as he got older, and especially on Match Game Hollywood Squares hour, my favorite part is crotchety Gene Rayburn.
Oh my
At that
God.
point in his career, he is so angry.
He
He
would
is
have
so
he would have been
tired.
anywhere else.
Oh, anywhere,
Even for the
anywhere.
Match Game portion, it was and you could tell, and well, because he was supposed to host his own version, and then they found out his real age, right? Or was that after that show was on?
I think that might have been afterwards. I want to say that
Okay.
was like in 85 and Hollywood Squares hour was like 83, 84. I know
Yeah.
the original idea was to have Gene Rayburn and Peter Marshall come back, which, oh my God. I mean, if that had happened, we'd be watching it now.
Oh yeah.
The hell with this podcast.
There was some kind of ownership issue though with Peter Marshall, wasn't there? Where he had sold some shares or something, and he wasn't quite as invested anymore,
I
or as
don't really
involved.
know all the details of it. I want to say, I think he was under contract already. I think he was hosting Fantasy with Leslie
Mhm.
Uggams in like
Oh my
83
goodness.
or something like that. I think that's the show that, or was it Yahtzee? No, Yahtzee was a little later. I want to say it
Mhm.
was, anyway, he was busy. And so they got,
Yeah.
I don't know, they just went down the line and said, okay, where's John Bauman?
I like John Bauman. Okay, I thought he was a
I liked it
he was
too.
a great password player as Bowser, and I thought that he really inherited kind of an impossible task.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? We're in this interesting era where we can now see 150 examples of the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour. It used to be
Whether
that
we
back in
want
the
to or
day.
not, right?
Yeah, right. It used to be if you knew Chuck Donegan or somebody on the training circuit, you would trade to get a VHS of one
Yeah.
really grainy episode of the show. Now we have so much. And a lot of the preconceived notions, I think, about game shows are being laid to rest because now we have all this data, right? We have all these counterpoints. I've seen enough of the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour to feel confident in saying John Bauman was not as bad a host as we thought back when we only had a couple episodes to judge him by.
Uh-huh.
And it was harder. And I think he mentioned it on Twitter once. He said, keep in
He
mind
did. Yep.
that, yeah, this is the only version of the show where there were no straight lines. We didn't get any fantastic jokes written in advance. It was really all up to them. And I remember it might have been the last episode or close to the last episode. Gene Rayburn was on the panel for Hollywood Squares and he
Oh
got a
yeah.
question. You remember this? And he said
Yeah,
something
and he
like,
just
he said, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to take a guess, which is the point of this game. You're supposed to either know the answer or bluff. But I used to love little moments like that where you get to see what
he was about ready to kill John Bauman by the end of every hour. I don't know how they did it. There's actually a really, really funny pandemic era review of the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour by someone who just discovered it on Buzzer, and it just goes down the line, and it's very, very clever. Basically like an 80s flop sweaty effort that never quite rose to the top.
No,
but
that's
it's
very true.
entertaining.
And the celebrities that they got, the caliber of celebrity that they got, especially like for Match Game, I feel like they were of that breed of mid 80s camera hogging, this is my moment, fame kind of celebrities. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and I wonder, really, would the 70s era Match Game have been possible in the 80s? I'm not sure it would have been, because the celebrities were just different. And
No, humor is different.
yeah.
Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, we're kind of in the beginning of the Letterman era where,
and we're in the
sarcastic
Reagan
humor
years.
is winning. Right, exactly. Yeah, I think the sense of humor of America was just completely different between the 70s and the 80s. Not
You
that
know,
I
I've been
was there
thinking
for most of
actually,
it, but
right. Actually, I've been thinking about gameplay, and this came to mind when I was watching the 70s and 80s versions of Card Sharks, and also watching some early Wheel of Fortune episodes versus later ones. And I mean, the 80s we think of as a very prosperous time, and the contestants on 80s game shows would take huge risks. I mean, spinning the wheel when there was no need to, not buying vowels on Card Sharks, never freezing, always going on. Whereas if we look at like the 70s Card Sharks, they're much more cautious. And then into 2000s wheel, they're also more cautious. And I'm wondering if the general economic climate of America has that effect on contestant strategies in game shows.
I think it's that a little bit. I also think, if I kind of Occam's razor it, I think it's just the idea that audiences like to see people gamble big. They like to see exciting
Yeah,
moments. And the
right.
show likes to have exciting moments that they can then clip out and crop and share
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and do whatever. When I was on The Chase in 2013, I remember going through the tape day and going to my dressing room and having lunch. And this was like day 2 of taping. So they were still kind of working out the kinks. So we were there
Uh-huh.
for longer than I thought. And I remember a producer about I'll say every hour or so, checking in with me. How you feeling? Still have that energy? Still want to go, still want
Oh,
to go away?
yeah.
Still want to bet it all? Still want to, take the high offer? And of course, you're kind of swept up in the moments. You go, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
And that's
yeah.
exactly what I did. I went for the high offer, and luckily, in my part of the game turned out well. The rest is whatever. But
Mhm.
I wonder if there are so many elements of the game show that are under the producer's control.
Well,
And I
yeah.
think that, you know what I mean? I think when I was younger, I didn't realize how much of a particular game show might not be 100% spontaneous. The producers do tell the contestants to say certain things, act a certain way, respond a certain way.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I was on Wheel of Fortune, I mean, Harry Friedman just had that down to a science. And everybody was like a well-oiled machine, and they knew exactly how to get us prepared and help us stay focused. It was really amazing.
God, I have heard that so often from so many Wheel of Fortune contestants about their backstage experience and their getting ready and how they were treated on that show. And every contestant I've talked to has more or less the same thing to say, that it was almost like a family. They're making this show and they know that the contestants, it's their first time on TV, and they want to treat them as nicely and as gently as possible so that this is a positive. That's not always the case. I've talked to a lot of contestants on other shows that
Really?
did not have good experiences.
Interesting. Yeah, and if you watch the like old episodes of shows with returning champions, the ones that are there a while, if they happen to retire or something, they will say like, "Thank you so much to so and so, the coordinator," because I mean, it really made the experience so much better. And so I think that's so important, for keeping everybody kind of motivated. But it was crazy on Wheel of Fortune because Pat and Vanna did not feel like part of that family. We didn't see them until the taping literally started. They came out, which I mean, I knew that we wouldn't really interact with them because game shows are highly regulated and all these things. But it was really amazing that we actually had absolutely zero contact, and then all of a sudden the cameras were on, we were rolling, and there they were.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a standards and practices thing, because I think the less time you have near the host, the less time you have to ask them for the answer to the next puzzle.
Well, and I always try to tell people this. Everyone always says, "Oh, such and such is rigged," and I said, "Have you ever read anything about the quiz show scandals? Like, don't you wonder why after a game is over, Bob Barker goes and shows you where the $10,000 are or whatever? It's
You
because
have
they want
to.
to prove to you that the thing isn't rigged."
Yeah, you have to play it out. Well, it's like when they do the lottery on TV. They show you all the balls going into the hopper. They show you how it works, when they turn it on, when they turn it off.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
super regulated. Before we get too deep into it, two things I want to tell you that I feel like you'd appreciate. So we were talking about crotchety Gene Rayburn a few minutes ago. So I had the pleasure of seeing a pilot that he did in 1985 for a word game called It.
Oh,
It.
oh,
And the premise of It was there was a blank, and there was a word before the blank and after the blank. The word that goes in the blank makes the statement make sense. So you have two-word phrases essentially that are joined by a common word in the middle. So like I remember one was miniature blank club. So golf would be the it
Oh.
word because it makes miniature golf and
like
golf
a
club.
before and after. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, just like that. And so there were 4 contestants, and the set was interesting. It was like the top 3 scorers move on to the next round, and the 4th player, their podium sinks into the floor. Which, of course, I mean, there's no way that can go wrong, right?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
so he has this massive mechanical set. When the podiums go down, I guess they didn't calculate, like they didn't measure the floor right. So when the podium went down, it would keep pressing that player's buzzer because it was caught under the floor.
God.
So that, combined with the contestants, were especially dumb for this particular pilot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Gene is getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and he's making fun
Now,
of the contestants.
Well,
He's
was this
making
before
fun-
or after Break the Bank?
This was, I don't have the exact date. It was 85. It was right
Okay.
around the same time, I think.
Okay.
But it was a joy to watch. If I find a copy, I'll send it to you. It was a
I
joy
have
to watch.
I love watching bad pilots by good people. The Orson Bean concentration was just awful, but he was such a good panelist. It's so interesting to see him try to navigate that. Even like I just watched a few episodes of the Peter Tamarkin Bargain Hunters. Wow. That's a bad show.
Oh, it's a horrible. There are so many bad
And they're
shows.
stupid. They're so stupid.
They are ridiculously stupid. I also have a particular enjoyment for pilots and the
Mhm.
bad ones. I
Yeah.
like them. I like them bad.
Have
So
you seen the pilot that could have been the hour-long Classic Concentration? That would have
um,
been really interesting.
was it with Alex Trebek?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, they did like a run through, right?
Yeah.
And they had like yeah, I saw a clip of it. I think the whole thing is getting posted at some point if it's not up already. But yeah, I did see it. Very interesting.
It's really too
That's
bad that didn't play out.
yeah, that
Could've been
set
fun.
that they did that on. Goodson, I think, owned some studio space in California, and
Uh-huh.
it was armed with like buzzers and scoreboards and timers and lights and bells, so they can test out any game format. It was like a
Yeah.
modular
Oh,
kind of
wow.
play set. Yeah, it's incredible. I saw an audition for 1990s Match Game
Mhm.
for the 1990 version, the one in
Yeah.
ABC, hosted by a guy named Clint Holmes,
Huh.
who he eventually hosted Campus All-Star Challenge for BET. Was like
Oh,
their
yeah.
college bowl,
Uh-huh.
and he
Yep.
went on to host like the live event for like years and years and years. But he got a chance to audition to host Match Game, and I thought he did really, really well. He took his glasses off every time he read a question, and I thought that worked against him. That's just my personal
Interesting.
theory, because he was really good. He was great with the celebrities, super funny. Um, yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that world of bad pilot. You know, they made 10 episodes of Concentration with Orson Bean.
Oh my god.
There are 2 weeks
I'm
of
sure
that out
each
there
one worse
somewhere.
than the last, I'm
Oh
sure.
God, God love him. Funny panelist. He is such
Yeah.
a bad host.
Well, and for Match Game, what was it, 90? Is that the one that ended up getting a greenlit for ABC?
Rob with Ross Schaefer. Yeah.
It's really too bad that Bert Convy was not well, because that could have been so good.
Oh,
But
he was great. I just
yeah.
watched one of his other pilots for that, because they did 5 of those.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I love Bert Convy. That to me is he's on my list of massively underrated talent.
I think that the matchup round could have really worked out, because the gameplay for Match Game with only 2 rounds is not long enough to fill a half hour. But the matchup round and the round 1 and round 2 and then the super match, it just felt all kind of jumbled up. It was very strange.
There was a lot happening, and for a show that's never really been heavy on the game and more about
Right.
the interplay between the
We don't wanna see the
celebrities.
gameplay. We want the celebrities to insult each other, right?
Right, right. Well, yeah, take the energy that you put into developing a little mini game like Matchup and put it into more creative casting. Find, fun
Yeah.
people that would do service to the format.
Although Brad Garrett, I was pleasantly surprised. He was very funny.
Oh, if there's one if there's one type of entertainer that makes me cringe, it's late 80s, early 90s comedic impressionists.
And that's the difference between men and women. No.
Yeah. No, but there are these comedians that will look for and it was like before they invented creative segues. So
Right.
like he'd give an answer, go, "Hey, I wonder how Sylvester Stallone would give this answer."
I
Hey, oh my God, kill
Oh,
me.
I have to mute Fred Travalena every single time he opens his mouth on Match Game. I can't do it.
He's a
I
lot.
just can't do it.
He's a lot. He's a lot for sure. Yep, yep, yep.
I mean, he's a nice guy and not a bad player, but I can't do the impressions.
What in your view, what makes a game show bad?
Um, I think what makes a game show bad is dead air. You have to keep it moving. And that's a combination of having a gameplay that makes sense and also a host that knows what to do and how to make people really sparkle. I mean, Bob Barker said that his technique was making the contestants the stars of the show, right? And if you
Sure.
knew how to make them be funny, they could be funny, and so I mean something like Bargain Hunters. Pierce Markin was fine. He had his quirks, but the gameplay was terrible and the contestants were very good. So it really didn't work out. For Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, the hosts were good, the celebrities were okay, the gameplay had flaws. So you had too much time where you could basically change the channel or think of, other things to do.
Right. We should probably clarify for anyone listening who's never seen or heard of Bargain Hunters. This was was like a ripoff of The Price is Right. It was on ABC in the late 80s, and they also tried to shoehorn in this, like, home shopping element where
Really
if you called it
sketchy.
oh, it's terrible. You could call, like, a 1-900 number, you could order the prizes that would horrible, horrible,
And get your
horrible.
palm read in the meantime, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly, exactly. Super cheesy. That's the word that comes to mind when I think of Burger Hunters, very cheesy.
But by then, I mean, it was very hard to make any game show work, I think, by the 80s.
Well,
Just because of the TV landscape.
sure, and by the late 80s, most of them are going away because we got talk shows, we got Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, just have everything, on lock. Um, I was just gonna oh, I told you a few minutes ago, I was gonna tell you 2 cool things, because we talked about Gene Rayburn. Peter Tomarken, I think my favorite game show host. I
Really?
know that he's not like a classical
Yeah.
option. He's not like Bill Cullen, who, all the old school guys are great, but I just have a personal fondness for Peter Tomarken. There's a pilot that he did in 1997, and I
Oh,
haven't been able to find it, but I've read about it, and it's called Winds of Fortune, and it's based on mahjong, and the entire
oh my
pilot
goodness.
was filmed in Malaysia.
Ah,
Right.
wow.
I don't know anything else about it, but I know you did it. I know it's a thing. I've just never seen it. That's
Wow.
one of my holy grail video finds.
Do you think someone has it?
Oh, they have to. How would they know about it? It has to be out there somewhere.
And was it aired or was it
No,
unaired?
never aired.
Okay.
No, never aired. I don't think they did anything with it. But I mean, it has to be. The idea of lost media, I feel like, is getting challenged in our genre every day with the with the stuff that's been discovered and uploaded and shared and unearthed
Oh,
and
yeah.
films
Well,
pop
we
up
just
on
got a new,
eBay.
hey, we just got a new 70s Password episode a couple months ago, right? I mean, we thought all of those were gone.
We did. There was one hosted by Betty White, I think, like in black and white. I contributed to the eBay buy for that. So I got a copy of
Oh,
that
okay.
before it went up on YouTube. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was fun. That was a fun watch. It's really fun to be into this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
It's fun.
absolutely.
You know, growing up, did you have anyone that you talked to like the way we're talking right now about game shows? Who were your conversational partners back then, if any?
No, not in this level of detail. I mean, my grandmother watched game shows, so I watched them with her, if I was at her house or whatever. But I mean, I was not a teenager till the early 2000s, and so like I when I was younger than that, I really didn't know where to look or how to find out more about this stuff. Even if I wanted to, it would have been more difficult to do so. But I would tell anyone who would listen about game shows.
Oh, same. Absolutely. Yeah, and I remember the first time I had met somebody in person who knew about game shows the way that I knew about them. They could kind of keep the ball up in the air in a conversation about like the fine details of them. And I was in line for The Price is Right. I'm still friends with him on Facebook. His name is Cody. And he was the first one I had ever talked to who knew that, hey, we're going to go to Studio 33. Like Card Sharks was here. Now You See It was here. Like,
Oh,
all the ghosts of these productions are in this building. So it was somebody to nerd out with. And I remember
yeah.
I was like a blabbering idiot. I would not stop talking because it's like you open the floodgates, right? All of a sudden, all this stuff I've always wanted to say in
Right.
real life, I've only gotten to say it, online, and now I have another person to talk to about it.
Yeah.
It's a rush.
Well, and I mean, there's really not much of an online community now for that sort of thing. I mean, not a lot of people do the forum thing anymore, and there's Reddit, but that can be a little dicey too. So it's really hard to find community, and people who have the same level of interest.
I will say that the BuzzerBlog Discord has become the new game show forum, in my opinion.
Really?
It is a much more
Okay.
lively conversation. It is fun. It's funny. There are smart, interesting people who are into this kind of stuff the way that we're into it. I spend more time there than I ever do on the forum. I mean, the forum has gotten a little old. It's the same few hundred people. They don't take new registration.
Sometimes if I'm ever kind of in the mood to have a little chuckle, or I'm a little bored, or I want to revisit things, Drew Carey has an old blog post from maybe 2009 where he just absolutely unloads on the Golden Road folks.
Oh,
And
I remember that.
Mike Richards has just become EP, and I mean, the prices. I really do not like Drew's early tenure because I thought the prizes were ridiculous, and he really hadn't found his voice yet. And Mike
No, yeah.
Richards didn't help any of that. And so you can see like, oh, that car is going to crash really soon, and I can see the blog post where it's starting to do that after they fire Roger Yakovitz. But it's really the comment section where everything goes down. It's amazing. And so I think, I am so glad that now he's found his footing and everyone is just a lot nicer in general to everyone else.
Oh, this show has really become its own. I agree with you about the first couple years. It was almost like it was in this gray area where it was Drew still hosting Bob's show.
Yeah.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Where like,
The
it just
camera angles were the same. Yeah.
yeah, the camera angles, the music was the same. It was still I don't think it was even in HD yet, his first season. It was still in standard definition. They changed the set a little bit, but it turned out that
Yeah.
you needed to change more in order to fit this complete paradigm shift. I mean, you have somebody coming in after 35 years. You
Uh-huh.
would think that that's the time to overhaul the whole thing. And I know that they're very sensitive, or at least the producer, Roger was very sensitive about
Yeah.
keeping everything the same. But after a certain point, you're doing a disservice to the show by keeping it kind of frozen
Yeah.
in time. Everything else around you is changing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of two minds with that because I enjoy the vintage prices right now, and I think that Roger Dobkowitz was a wonderful producer. I mean the episodes with him and Johnny and Mark Bresla are just absolutely incredible. Um,
Yeah.
and um, and I think that there were some changes the network was just dying to make as soon as Bob retired, and there was no stopping it. And so I think that there's some bitterness with fans of the show they misdirect that anger at Drew, and he's just trying to be a good game show host. And so I mean, I think, in the early shots um when he walked out onto the stage after he was announced, they still showed the walkout from behind, with the lights gleaming at the top of the screen. And then when they started to show, like, follow Drew as he walked out and do that camera pan, that it said it has to feel like a party, and that's the vibe that they wanted to go for. And so that's a change I think that really worked.
It's
So
a
I just
different energy. Absolutely.
yeah,
It's funny
yeah,
how a subtle change like that can communicate a whole different vibe to a viewer.
yeah. Yeah, you know, when I look at the old Price is Right episodes, they think, "Oh, don't you wanna watch the ones from the '90s?" Like, "No, not really." Like,
No,
I
absolutely
was
not.
alive for those, and they weren't that good. I mean, the only person that I really remember from the old Price is Right, other than Bob, is Janice. But I remember the prizes were all these, like, weird, like, old person style, like, grandfather clocks and things, which in the '70s were cheap. In the '90s, we wanted stuff, and
Yeah.
that wouldn't cut it.
Right. Well, even if you watch the commercials for like the last few years of Bob's Price is Right, you're getting hover round ads and
Oh, yeah.
individually wrapped prunes and just all kinds of things that they are not advertised at the Price is Right today. I think they skew a little bit
Yeah.
younger these days, which is a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Although I was pleasantly surprised. So, I mean, because I'm a musician and because I research game show music, one of my big beefs with Drew's tenure on The Price is Right was that they got rid of the classic cues. I always thought those were great. But I was pleasantly surprised. I was watching an episode. I don't really get to watch a lot of them, but I was listening it, and they actually have brought a couple of them back, which is really good to hear. I mean, they're so catchy, and they bring back such good memories. But I think that they they have their own vibe, that's
Oh,
still a good thing to
absolutely. And I
have.
think that music is timeless. I mean,
Yeah.
The Price is Right, no matter how much they try to chrome it up,
Mhm.
the fact that the show is still on the air is a testament to the power of nostalgia.
And they're
It's
still playing any number. They're still playing
they're
Lucky
still playing
7,
all of them,
Plinko. Yeah.
Clock Game, and yeah,
Yeah.
all of that. And so I mean, I'm not a producer, but I would have loved for them to lean into that. The music again is just timeless, and it's so nostalgic, and it's so uh It's just so well made. I had
You
a
know, and those musicians, the studio musicians, were so talented. It's incredible.
yeah, they were fantastic. I had the pleasure of interviewing Ed Callahan a couple years ago
Hmm.
just to talk about his creative
Were
process.
you the one who did that interview?
That was me. Yeah.
I used that in my research.
Did you?
I've watched that whole interview where he spends 3 hours, and I wanted this one quote that I knew that he said when he said that. I mean, I watched the interview anyway just because I enjoy that stuff, and I love his music. But he said that The Price is Right was like a kaleidoscope, and when he saw the show and the fact that the gameplay moved that fast, that's when he knew that he had to modulate to different keys quickly. And I thought that is exactly what I need to know for this presentation I'm giving, and I just need to find it. And it was in the last like 6 minutes of I watched that whole thing again just to find that one quote. But
That's wonderful. I don't want to burst your bubble too much. I think that's a different interview. My my
okay.
buddy Adam Nedoff and Bob Bowden, Howard Blumenthal from
Mhm.
the Strong Museum. I think they conducted that one. I did
Oh,
a
okay.
separate interview for BuzzerBlog, but I did end up talking to him for about 2 hours.
Oh,
But
oh
it
yeah, oh
was
yeah,
through
that was a good interview
text.
too, though. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it was a
yeah,
written
yeah.
article. But yeah, talking about how he used to hide the titles of the shows in the
Yes,
theme.
The Price is Right. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly.
and I had mentioned that in the interview. I said, "I can't believe I have this question on my list." I thought I was insane. And I've been wanting to ask him for years
Yeah.
if that was by design, and it was. It just blew my mind. He was great to talk to. Um, in your research, and I'll talk about the music from the '60s through the '80s. To me,
Mhm.
that is the time for game
Oh, yeah.
shows. The mid '70s in particular is my favorite, but just those 3 decades, I mean, that's when the kind of shows that we like came to be. In
Mhm.
your research, is there any commonality between the really good game show themes? I know there are so many different games. I mean, Password's a word game.
Yeah.
Split Second's a trivia game. Jeopardy's a trivia game. The Price is Right is, price guessing. What?
So
Yeah, yeah, tell me.
Well, yeah. So, one connection that I think I found that's very strong is that the really good game show themes, they are able to be played for as short or as long a time as possible, and they can be faded in, faded out, and you still recognize the theme. It still gives the desired effect or atmosphere. And of course you needed to have a flexible musical package because maybe the host takes 33 seconds to walk out instead of 28, that sort of thing. Um, so the really good themes take advantage of this by being deliberately ambiguous. And so they'll go to very strange key areas, or they'll have these constant repetitions of a melody or an idea, so that if you were to drop the needle, you wouldn't know exactly where you were in the theme song. And so it creates an effect of music being this constant current that you can kind of draw from if you need to. And I thought that uh, that really worked well with that live to tape, where yeah, no, you really didn't stop. You just kept going, and things just took a little longer sometimes. And as I watch these shows, uh, they all have that in common. That the theme songs are typically ambiguous but very catchy, very well written, and projecting a marketable energy.
That's a fascinating insight into that type of music. I realized that, these days as a 35-year-old man, my taste in music is a lot different than it was, 15, 20 years ago. And I listen to a lot of jazz fusion these days. I listen to a
Mhm.
lot of contemporary jazz, and I realized that that type of music has been in my life the whole time. Whether we're talking about Super Nintendo RPGs that just
Yep.
have that fusion vibe to them. The Weather Channel was always on in my
Yeah.
house, and The Price is Right. I mean,
Yeah.
that type of music, correct me if I'm wrong, is pretty much jazz fusion in a different
Yeah.
sort of shell, right? Because you have the same sort of chord progressions, and you have the same,
That's right.
kind of, eclectic instruments,
And the
the synth in
solos
particular.
and
Right,
yeah.
right.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and I mean, I think the best $50 I ever spent was becoming a member of the of the Museum of Television Production Music.
Absolutely.
and
And if anyone listening is not a member, please join.
it is such a wonderful resource, and it's not cheap to maintain, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely. tvpmm.com. They have never talked to me or paid me for that, but I think anyone who has any interest in that type of production music, they owe it to themselves. That's an incredible resource.
And it's not just game shows. It's sports packages. I think they have ticket stubs too, and all kinds of other things, which is great. But I love going through the old Price is Right cues, 72, 76, 83, and 74. And the style changes slightly in the 80s. You get more of a synthy vibe, but the musicians are always absolutely on top of it every single moment. And so I just like listening to the solos, because those studio musicians, they just did that. And it's really incredible. And they were able to capture the vibe of the piece, and then have a really, really captivating solo. And all the different cuts of the cues are really great too. I love when they vary the instrumentation. Some of these instrumentations you've never even heard on TV because they just maybe didn't work or something, but they're still a lot of fun to hear. The Walt Levinsky cues have a lot of those from 1976, and they're just so much fun.
Remind me of some of the stuff that he wrote. Did he do there was an I've Got a Secret reboot in the 70s, and also a show called Second Chance that used the same theme song.
Oh,
I want to say
that's
that
one
was
of my
Walt.
favorite theme songs. I don't think it is, but
Oh,
I
okay.
can. I think that was. Let's see. I've got a list right here.
It was either Walt or it was Charles Fox. I see his name a lot as well.
Yes, it was. Let's see. So the truth. No, that was I've Got a Secret. Yeah. Lee Ringget.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is a
Uh,
name I am not familiar with.
Charles Fox was. Oh, what did he do? Oh, it was really good too. Well, Levinsky did Password Plus, which is great.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's an incredible theme.
That's one of my
Absolutely.
favorite theme songs.
Oh, you know what? Charles Fox, I know, did the Money Maze.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little and the Big Showdown. I want to say he did both of those.
Okay. Yeah, I remember writing about one thing that he did, and it didn't make it into my book, but it made it into a presentation, and his name just sticks out to me. I mean, it's all amazing, but he's one of the names that keep coming up. Him and Walt Levinsky, and of course Ed Kalehoff, who I think Ed Kalehoff's themes are very interesting because they really capture the decade. He did not stay in the 70s or stay in the 60s.
No, you're
was really
absolutely
amazing.
right. He very much adapted to the current context of music. It's crazy that the theme song to The Price is Right and the theme song to Double Dare were written by the same person.
Yeah. The Nickelodeon Double Dare.
Nickelodeon Double Dare, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Although who did the Trebek
It's so
Double
fun.
Dare?
It's so fun to have a guest that knows the difference.
Yeah.
I know it was Score Productions because the CBS Double Dare with Alex Trebek was the same as Card Sharks.
Yes, yeah.
It might have even been
but that was
Ed.
Trivia Trap. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Huh. I'm
What
looking
was
at the
the other-
producer's table here.
What was the other show that theme was used for Double Dare? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, Double Dare in 76 and then Card Sharks in 78 used the same theme.
Oh, of course, that's right. Oh, yeah, that was Ed Kalehoff. Yeah,
Right.
and he did both 70s and 80s Card Sharks, which is really cool to hear the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a timeless talent for sure.
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun talking with you about game shows. We should probably talk about the one you were on at some point.
Yeah, right.
How did you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at first I was not interested in Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy because Merv Griffin is his own thing, in many ways. But
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, he just, it seems like he was a little bit more of a ham than other game show producers, and he did the talk show thing, and he was an organist, which I think is really cool. And he was just kind of a big personality, and he composed the music for Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, which wasn't, which I mean, I guess, uh, you know, the closest analog to that would be uh Chuck Barris composing for Gong Show and stuff. Uh, but his Griffin's Wheel of Fortune theme is really interesting because uh, it a music theory when something is able to end easily in the key that it started in. So if it starts in C major, it ends in C major, easy peasy. We call that a closed form. Well, Wheel of Fortune theme song is an open form. So where it starts and where it ends are different places. And so if you take where it ends and try to do the same melody as in the beginning, you can't do it in the same key. So what ends up is we go in this weird spiral of different keys. Now, that could be analogous to the wheel itself. You spin the wheel, you spin the circle, and get different keys. But what's really interesting is that about halfway through the theme song, the strategy for changing keys, which is the, the name of the theme song, changes. So they change much faster. And where it would have been possible to get back to where we were originally after a few times through, we can't with this new strategy. And so that intentional ambiguity, I think is really interesting. And I didn't think of it at first with Wheel of Fortune, but then I should have because of Merv Griffin's background. And Nightwalk is great too. That's the Wheel of Fortune shopping music, and knowing that Merv Griffin was an organist is fun because he actually sneaks in the letters BACH, Bach, to the Nightwalk music, which is really fun.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I learned a new fun fact today. That is awesome. Thank you for that, Chris.
Sure.
Tell me again what the reference is. What's the significance of those letters
Okay.
in the music?
Sure. So Johann Sebastian Bach was a Baroque composer, one of the greats, really innovative in a lot of different ways. And so as it happens, the letters BACH can be spelled out musically. In Germany, the letter B is actually R B flat on the keyboard, and H is B natural. And so B flat to A to C to R B natural spells out BACH in German notation. And you see this throughout history. Bach snuck his name into places, and he put other people's names in there too. Schumann, when he was really depressed, he decided to write fugues. Good for him. Not sure that'd be my first go-to, but okay, you do your thing, Schumann. But he would spell BACH in there. Paul Hindemith, the 20th century, and countless other composers. And so it is a very, very common musical device that if you studied music or if you're kind of in that world, it would be kind of a fun in-joke to sneak that into something where you wouldn't expect it. And I suspected, and I hope that that's what Merv Griffin was doing.
Wow. That blew my mind. I can't wait. I can't wait to tell all my game show friends I learned something new about the Wheel of Fortune. I'll tell you something that I don't know if you knew about Nightwalk, but before the current version of Jeopardy, just a year before, they filmed a pilot for Jeopardy using an old set that looked like a massive Apple II computer. And it was all poll cards. It was still Alice Trebek hosting, but they did it at the TAV Celebrity Theater. So it was where Merv Griffin was doing his talk show at the time. It was a very small set. Everything was made of cardboard and stuff. And the commercial intro and outro was Nightwalk. So that's one of the few pieces of music that's been used for Jeopardy and for Wheel of Fortune.
That's really interesting. I love that.
It's funny that a lot of these decisions, I think, were just kind of spur of the moment. I don't know that there is as much artistic flourish in selecting music for the commercial outro to the Jeopardy pilot.
Yeah.
That we're giving it credit for, but it's still interesting to think about.
Well, and I love seeing music reused. I just get such a kick out of that. like the Bob Eubanks Card Sharks, not only does it use the studio, but they use the trip skins, like the watercolors that they used to use on The Price is Right.
Oh, the big
Uh,
graphics when they give away a trip.
and the music, which is and the losing horn and the whoop whoop whoop, the winning sound. So it's really fun to see, like, oh yeah, like of course this stuff was lying around. Why not use it? It's pretty convenient and it's cheap. So
Absolutely. I had a conversation once with Eddie Timanis, who was he was blind. He was a 5-day Jeopardy champion. He was a
uh-huh.
national celebrity for he's still huge, I think, in the quizzing scene. But we talked about the shows that he enjoyed before he got to become a contestant.
Mhm.
And it was at a time when a lot of my guests were mentioning the same thing, Scrabble. The show
Huh.
Scrabble used so many sound effects and so many incidental sounds and
Yeah.
cues and stingers, and it was just a very sonically rich show that
Interesting.
even somebody blind like Eddie could enjoy it and know what was happening just by following the sounds.
Well, and that's very interesting because if you look at the recordings on the TV Production Museum website, there are all these options for stingers and various sound effects that are derived from the theme song for all these shows that simply don't get used because I think that okay, press play on the theme song, fade out was just the standard, but it's always nice to see when a TV show like Scrabble really makes use of those particular sounds and okay, how can we create the right effect? What sound do we want? And that shows a carefulness that obviously pays off.
Oh, it sure does. And not to mention the technology that's involved in having all of those sounds
Mhm.
ready to play at a moment's notice. I mean, we're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about the mid 80s. That could not have been inexpensive.
And all those sounds, those were done on the fly in studio, right? None of that was really post-production.
I I don't know, and I'm sure somebody out there knows. I don't imagine that they did a whole lot in post-production. I know they had to
Yeah.
edit sometimes because from what I've heard from contestants and people who have worked on the show was that it was a very technically fraught project, and things were
Uh-huh.
always falling apart and blowing out and going down and crashing and
Yeah.
rebooting and restarting. So it may be, but I wouldn't have a definitive answer for that. I'd be interested to know for sure.
I just saw a YouTube, walkthrough. I've always been fascinated, yet unknowledgeable about the technology that's been used on game shows and how they did certain things, and so I got a huge kick about learning how they did the light border on The Price is Right or the credit roll and stuff like that. I just think it's really fascinating. I saw someone do a walkthrough of how he bought one of those old egg crate, number displays and then programmed it. It was just really interesting to me, and it's so complicated, and the fact that they could put these things together, keep them working, and deploy them on the fly is really amazing.
The display technology involved and so I actually own a segment of an egg crate display. I
Mhm.
own the dollar sign from one of the podiums on the Joker's Wild.
Oh.
On the back, it says, it's written B+E for Barry and Enright, and
Ah.
the date that they last tested it was sometime in, like, 77 or 78. So I
Mhm.
could only assume that that's where they used it, and it was one of the ones that's capable of displaying 0 through 9 plus a dollar sign.
Right.
Um, I hooked it up 'cause the friend of mine who gave it to me also fashioned me, like, an adapter that I could use with any sort of power supply, so I could
Mhm.
choose whatever number I wanna light up, and it's a little finicky to set it up, but you can only have it on for, like, a minute at a time. Those things get so damn hot,
Yeah.
and you realize that they had I mean, think about, I think about Press Your Luck, how there were 6 of those that made up each contestant's scoreboard. They had 18 of those running at the same time, in addition to all the lights on the contestant island, in addition to the
Yeah.
board and all the slide projectors. What a nightmare.
Well, yeah, and, like, for some of these sets, I mean, lights were always running and always flashing, like, no wonder the studios were kept so cold, right?
Right, right. It's unbelievable. I heard hold on, I got a cough. Sorry. We're almost there. We're almost out of this cold. Um, I heard a story once about, and I don't know if it was due to the heat or what, but during a taping of Press Your Luck, a bunch of the slide projectors exploded. And they had to
Whoa.
cancel taping for the day because a bunch of the slides got damaged. So they replaced a bunch of them and brought everyone back,
Mhm.
however long later. But
Yeah.
heat is a formidable enemy when producing a game show. And then you go in, you realize why the air conditioning is so cold when you watch a game show live when you're in the audience.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was on Wheel of Fortune, all the pressure, whatever, and I didn't break a sweat. Uh, and I get hot very easily, so I was pretty amazed, but it was just so cold in there, and I was surprised that any of us could actually, press the buttons on on the buzzer or spin the wheel after a while. But I guess they really did have to keep it that cold for the technology.
When you went into Wheel of Fortune, in terms of winning, did you have a goal in mind? Did you have a magic number that you wanted to walk away with, or was that secondary to the fun of playing the game?
I didn't have a magic number. I thought, I mean, everyone wants to win a game show. Uh, and I knew that I knew that if the conditions were right, I could do really well. But I also knew that sometimes things just don't go as planned. I mean, a perfectly good contestant can just have a really crappy spin on the wheel, or a great competitor. And I had two wonderful competitors, and it was a little dicey for a second. And the only reason I did particularly well is that Pat spun the 5,000 for the final spin, because I didn't win the bonus round, which I got a lot of heat for at home.
Right. But that
Um,
final round where time is running out, he gives the final spin. It landed on
yeah,
5. So that's everything is worth 6,000 each, right? Because they add
exactly.
$1,000 to whatever he lands on.
And I
Wow,
guess
big money.
and there were 4 M's, and that was it.
Hell yeah.
And I was neck and neck with the person to my left, and I just happened to be in the right place, the right time. I was right in the middle, and so a couple turns went by, and I still can watch it and figure out, oh, that's when I knew.
Right.
And then I think I had a split second to decide which letter is gonna do really well, and that was it. So,
That's wonderful. Tell me about the bonus puzzle that you still get crap for to this
oh
day.
my god, it's terrible. The bonus puzzle, see, by the speed up round, I could tell that I was losing focus, because it simply didn't, um, things weren't registering as they were. Uh, and and so when the bonus round started, I knew that I was not quite as sharp as I had been 20 minutes before. And it was a thing. I hate that category. I'm so jealous now that they can choose their own categories for the bonus round. I couldn't. The category was thing.
Right.
And I knew that the thing, the first word of the thing, ended with ing, because the N was there, and I think I just took a really good guess. And I said, okay, because I know that that's I'm not going to guess I for a vowel. I'm going to guess another vowel. If I had guessed I for a vowel, I would have gotten the puzzle, no problem, because it was boiling point. Who wouldn't get boiling point? But
But
I
wait a
went,
second. Wait. So let's think about the letters. There are a lot of vowels in
yeah.
boiling point. And I'm trying to think if you were to pick one of them individually.
You
And
know
I
which
think
one not to pick is A, which I did.
oh no. Whoops.
Yep.
I'm trying to strategize in here. I'm like, I think the I would have been the best one to pick. I mean, you don't know what the puzzle is, so hindsight is 2020. But the I think would have clued me into an ing. I would have tried to
Yeah,
fit something
and
in there.
I made the false assumption that because I already knew an I was there, I would try for another vowel and get more information. And I didn't think, oh, well, maybe there were more I's.
Right, right.
But I mean, you can get pretty far on Wheel of Fortune with letter frequency, and so I think that's just a good all-purpose strategy. But and of course the one guess I managed to eke out was impossible. to get because it had a T in it and there wasn't a T in the puzzle. So, I guess talking point just to say anything. And of course, that wouldn't have been possible with RST L&D already given. So,
Well, that's all right. You got 10 seconds. You're just thinking of whatever comes to mind.
and the prize that I would have won was less than my overall winnings. So
Oh, was it? Yeah. How much was in the how much was in the envelope? What did you miss out on?
I think it was 25,000 and I ended up winning 40,550.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What did that money allow you to do or see or experience? What did you do with it?
I bought my first car outright. And
Hey, wonderful. What kind of car?
it was a 2009 Jetta.
Wonderful.
And it was a great car. I had it from 2010 to 2017. I bought another Jetta. And that took some, taxes took some, and the rest I think I just spent on having a good time. I honestly, I was a senior in college, I was having fun. I could travel a little bit, which was great. But I was on my way to grad school, and so I definitely needed a car. And so that's the main thing that I got to buy off my Wheel of Fortune winnings.
That's a blessing. Perfect timing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And when I bought my most recent car, I thought, oh, I am so jealous of my former self because I didn't have a car payment all those years.
Right.
I
Oh,
could
yeah.
just
You
buy
were
it in
spoiled
cash.
for
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah.
sure. Oh, it's wonderful to hear that you had a great experience on the show. Again,
It was
I love
great.
talking. Yeah, I love talking to Wheel of Fortune contestants because they're always so positive about the experience.
I'm still a little annoyed that I was not asked back for fan favorites. I thought that the audience really liked me, but oh well, that's their decision.
Oh, well, and there are other shows. Have you had the itch to apply for any other game shows? Did Wheel of
Yeah,
Fortune kind of give you the bug?
yeah. I have enough of an ego. I'm an artist. Of course, I have an ego. I have enough of an ego where I think I could do well on certain shows. I would not do well on shows that would require me to act anything out or draw anything. I'm more of a word guy. So I think I would do really well on Pyramid. I probably would have done well in the match game. Um, but and probably well on Press Your Luck, but I wouldn't be especially suited for that because those are softball trivia questions and then a lot of strategy and or luck.
Sure, and a lot of energy. As a
Yeah.
35-year-old guy, I don't know that I
I'm
have it
tired
to
all the time.
I know, right? I don't know that I have it to go, "Woo!" Oh my god, for an hour? I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know. I don't
And
know.
even, when I was on Wheel of Fortune 16 years ago, I was happy, but I could never have been like that crazy energetic as you see like on The Price is Right. But I've wanted to apply for game shows. It's just always hard to figure out how a lot of the casting websites are not updated very well or very frequently. And so it's tough to figure out, like, if I fill out an application, will it go anywhere? And also, now that the applications require video, like, what are they looking for in a video? Like, I'm not gonna spend the time to make a creative video. I'm sorry. I work all the time. I don't have that in me. I can show you that I'm a good person and I'm energetic and I'm smart and I'd be a good contestant, but I feel like a lot of other people have a lot more time on their hands to impress people than I
Right.
do.
Absolutely. Well, and I've said it several times on this show, I am not a big fan of the video audition. I don't like sending a video in. I don't like doing Zoom. I don't like any of that. To me, like, the way you judge whether a person would be good for that type of experience is you see them in person and you see in real time how they react to the circumstances of the game. How do they react when they win? How do they react when they lose? And to me, there's just too much self-awareness involved in Zoom and video to be your authentic self. Like, I find that I'm always focused on how I look. Is this going well? Do I need to start over?
Yeah.
Did I say what I wanted to say properly? Did I stutter? I'm so consumed with those thoughts that it's hard to be fully invested in an audition like through that channel. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, and they ask for, like, headshots now, and it's like, "Okay, what are we auditioning for here?" Like, I'm sorry, like, I think I'm reasonably good looking, for TV. Like I feel like I have the kind of looks of like one of those classic game show hosts. Not hot or handsome, but just like kind of pleasant. Like that's the vibe I'm going for. But
Sure, they ask
but
you for headshots. It's like, what are we verifying here?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll tell you. I'll tell you something I told to a contestant on this show a couple weeks ago. 2018, I was on Match Game that was casted all through Zoom, and I did well
Mhm.
enough that they put me on the show. But one of the final rounds of auditions, they checked my teeth like
Really?
a horse. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. 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 They decided. I don't know. I think it's because it was prime time. They wanted to make
Yeah.
sure
And
everyone had all their
HD.
teeth.
What did you think of Alec Baldwin's Match Game?
I think that his version of Match Game, the one that was on ABC most recently, to me is the most authentic callback to the original 70s version. I mean, you're not going to find celebrities of that caliber that have that incredible wit that they can just keep the ball in the air the entire time and,
Right.
get around to playing the game because they are having so much fun as people. Like, you're not going to have that anymore. But
Yeah.
I thought that the set was beautiful. I thought the
Uh-huh.
casting was eclectic. It reminded me of the casting for the last couple of years of Hollywood Squares with Tom Bergeron.
Uh-huh.
They had these incredible panels. I was watching not to veer too far off topic, but 1 week of Hollywood Squares in like 2003. It was Joan Embry, the zoologist that was on the
Uh-huh.
Tonight Show. It was Brad Garrett. It was Bear in the Big Blue House. Randy Macho Man Savage, all on the same show.
That's amazing.
That's
Who was center
incredible.
square?
Probably Ellen DeGeneres or something. I don't
Okay.
know. But they just, I thought the casting on Match Game similarly was great. I got to meet Sandra Bernhard, Raven
Mhm.
Simone, and Wayne Newton when I was on my
Oh,
show.
wow.
Unbelievable people I never thought I would
Yeah.
ever meet in real life. But the show itself, I thought they did a great job. It
So here's
it
something interesting about
yeah.
about that Match Game. So that is part of what I would consider a generation of game show revivals. That would be Match Game, Press Your Luck, Card Sharks, R.I.P., but not really,
Yeah.
and Pyramid.
Sure.
Pyramid being a little older.
Sure.
And all of those shows display a remarkable fidelity to the original gameplay.
Absolutely.
I mean, not 60s Match Game, obviously, but but the rules are always very similar. In the case of Match Game, they were nice enough to keep the dollar amounts the same from the 70s.
Yes, they were. Well, yeah, for the most part, I won $5,000 on Match Game, and I felt like I was on the 70s version. It was great.
Yeah. But the thing is that the theme songs are also much more likely to be reorchestrated versions of the classics. Like if you look at Match Game logos, 70s, and then the ill-fated hour in the 80s, and then the two 90s versions. They all have their own vibe. But the revival in 2016, that Match Game is the exact logo from the late 70s, just with different lighting. And the music is just a remastered version of the original theme song. And that was also the case for Press Your Luck. It's kind of the case for Pyramid. There were some differences. And Card Sharks had the same structure of a theme song, but different instrumentation. And what I noticed was that I said earlier how these older game shows, it was the sophistication of the technology was press play, fade in, fade out. That's what was possible, and that's what they could do live to tape. Because of nonlinear editing nowadays, they can actually cut and slice and dice the music so that it always sounds like there's an ending. And that was something that was never possible on earlier game shows. But the ending always has to do with the best known version of the original theme song. It always takes its material from that. And so it really seems to me like this latest generation of game shows is trying to capitalize on that nostalgia by really reinforcing the best remembered parts of theme songs and kind of getting rid of the others or downplaying the others. Press Your Luck, I think they got rid of the bridge in that one, and for Match Game, I think they rearranged some sections so you don't hear the lesser known second group of 8 measures, that
Right.
sort of thing. So it's really interesting to me that they know that people love this stuff, and so they're going to do everything they can to remind people why they love it. And I mean, it's very, very smart, but it's also something that it has been really cool to watch, even if it takes away from some of that kind of rough around the edges charm of the old shows.
Yeah, the shows are a little more, and that's a fascinating observation, by the way. And yeah, the shows nowadays are a little more polished. They're a little more ready for
Mhm.
prime time, if you will. But yeah, that's interesting that they seem to simplify the musical element. I think of Family Feud in particular.
Uh-huh.
They use that same, I don't know how many measures it is, but that very iconic first phrase of that theme song, and they cut that up for anything. They use it for transitions as the contestants are walking
Well,
to face
yeah.
off. They use it for commercials. They use it for, for everything.
Well, yeah, and like the theme music that they used to have when Gene Woodward introduced the families, since they don't do family introductions anymore, they have no need for that music, and that was really the cool like fiddle solos and like the really unique stuff that maybe you wouldn't be able to go humming, but it did uh, um, a really great job kind of introducing the show, the whole Hatfield McCoy feud sort of thing. And now it's just nope. You get the theme music, and here are the 8 measures, and we're going to cut it up and just reinforce it. It's
Sure.
it's a smart strategy, but unfortunately, it does dilute some of the musical charm.
Oh, I am a purist, 100%. And during COVID, when I was home and watching more TV than usual, because I wasn't, I love game shows, but I don't, contrary to what some people might think, I don't watch them for, hours a day.
Right.
But being home and being more in tune with the entertainment that I was consuming, I realized that I am very firmly a classic game show fan. I love what the revivals are doing these days. I'm glad that they're in front of new eyes. I'm glad that, a new generation of contestants get to play these games and be on TV and do the whole thing. I'm a fan of the classics. At the
I
same
have not.
time, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not ready to watch the new Hollywood Squares yet.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet either. I haven't seen it right.
Yeah.
And I, I just have such a fondness for the source
Mhm.
material that I almost don't wanna throw myself into that you know, the mental gymnastics required to accept a new version of these shows that meant so much to me growing up. But I'm also very grateful that we're in an era of game show producers who were raised by the game shows that we watched growing up. They were raised by Game Show
Yeah.
Network. They were raised by that weird late 90s, early 2000s period of game show revivals where we got, Donny Osmond's Pyramid and the
Oh
Match
boy.
Game from 98
And Whammy.
and Whammy and all these, you know what I mean? All these sort of,
Yeah.
in retrospect, tone deaf revivals that didn't do enough to acknowledge the source material. We're in this era where game show producers, and they're very passionate people. I think you have to be
Yeah.
passionate to be a producer of that kind of TV. You have to be able to see it through. Um, they know that there is a balance to be struck between being too old that it looks retro or so new that it alienates the people who were familiar with the original.
Well,
Great
and
what
those
they're doing.
revivals were not bad. They were just bland. They had no personality,
That's exactly it, right.
and
I
that's
think
what people are looking for.
of the Donny Osmond Pyramid theme song or
Yeah.
or whatever you'd call it, the collection of sounds that they used as a
Yeah.
theme.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think I can think of it.
Yeah,
It
it's I'll if I find it, I'll throw it in here when I edit.
Yeah. Well, what really attracts me to the old shows, and this is kind of a personal thing. So, being a gay man, it's hard to find. It is still hard to find good role models on TV and someone to look to for kind of that old school, like you got to know your culture kind of history.
Sure, sure.
I know the
Those
really
like
good actors.
milestone figures, yeah.
Exactly, and the thing is, those shows in the 70s, they had the campy element where it was like, oh, wink, wink. Oh, of course, Charles Nelson Riley is gay, and oh, but he's Chuck sometimes, and everything was kind of a double entendre where if you knew what was going on, it always felt like I had a connection to shows like that because of the way that they treated what was a cultural taboo.
That is a fascinating viewpoint. I remember talking to a band named Terry Ray, who was on a show called, well, he was on Scrabble in the late 80s, and he eventually got a couple commercial gigs. I think he's an actor, to this day. But he talked about that as well, that growing up as a gay man watching this type of TV, there weren't many people to look to. So you were, he mentioned he was kind of left to Paul Lynde and Charles Nelson Riley,
Yeah.
who are, they're on TV and they are gay, and I would say openly so,
Yeah.
but they're famous for being tongue in cheek about it. They're not famous for
Yeah.
being proud of their sexuality. So I can imagine that would be a point of frustration for somebody of that identity, that there isn't really, or that there wasn't really anyone, to look up to. There are more role models for you today in this world of game shows, aren't there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and certainly more than I don't know if you know what happens on the season of White Lotus, but yeah, that's not exactly a good role model there. But
I haven't seen White Lotus yet. I need to.
yeah. Well, anyway, your listeners can fill it in, I suppose. Yeah, but even so, everybody today is just kind of bland, they're just kind
Sure.
of everybody's a product, and they're ready for TV, and they know what to say, and they don't have that kind of old New York stage presence that was really so instrumental in helping these shows come alive.
Absolutely. Gene Rayburn, to me, is the perfect example of that. You
How
look
did
at
he
the
get
way
the Bye Bye Birdie gig? I didn't think he could sing.
I don't think I've ever heard Gene Rayburn sing.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think I've ever heard him sing. But I think about the way he hosted Match Game in the 70s. It was very
Mhm.
physical. He was, mugging
Mhm.
for the camera and using whatever he had around him as a prop. And
Yeah, the breath spray.
yeah, and I feel like that behavior belies a history of being on stage. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's a certain mentality that goes into being on stage and knowing that you got to do something up there, and whatever's around you, improvise, use it. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, I
That's
would
an energy
imagine
that's
that.
missing, I think, from a lot of, from
Oh,
all
yeah.
current TV.
Well, and I would imagine also, in the earlier days of TV, you still needed those big expressions that you had on stage because the quality just wasn't that good, of the actual picture.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you had to make Milton Berle face.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
His SNL episode is a real trip. Have you seen that?
Oh, I know about it. I've
Oh,
never seen
God.
the footage. I know it's on Hulu now.
Yeah,
It
certainly
wasn't
is.
for a long time. I think that episode was kind of blacklisted for a while.
Oh, yeah, he was banned, from I think the only person who actually enjoyed having him there, I think, was Bill Murray. Everyone else just hated him by the end of the week.
Did you ever read the book about Bill Cullen, Quizmaster?
Oh, no, I would love to. He's one of the people that, I just like you really have a fondness for Peter Tomarkin. I for some reason have a fondness for Bill Cullen. He just seems like a genuinely good person, and of many varied interests, and very witty and very quick. I love watching him host almost anything, from Price is Right in the 60s to blockbusters in the 80s.
I agree 100%. He is his own style. I mean,
Mhm.
you think about the stereotypical game show host of the 70s and 80s. Hey, $10,000. That whole
Yeah,
like
the con
image.
man, right? Yeah.
Right. Bill Cullen was the best of all of those, and he
Mhm.
was not that at all.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. He was just so his own thing, and it was exactly what that type of TV needed. It
Well,
was
and
warm and funny and
yeah.
and authoritative. He knew the rules of the game. You could count on him to guide you through this experience.
But he was still relaxed. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll be back,
Yep,
or
yep.
we'll laugh about something. But it's funny because, you look at his filmography, he really wasn't on any game shows that lasted a very long time, except Price is Right, right?
No, all of his shows, I think The Price is Right was his longest running show. I don't think
Yeah.
maybe 3 on a Match might have been his second
Uh-huh.
longest. That was 3 years and change or
Yeah.
something
Oh,
like that.
how long was he on Joker as well? 2 years?
No, I think just the final season.
Okay.
That was right
You know,
after Jack Barry had passed away.
yeah, and I mean, a lot of the shows suffered, I think, just because they weren't great games. Like he was a great host, but there's only so much you can do. The AV Club had a series. I think they're defunct, but you can still find their stuff on various archives or whatever. They had
Sure.
a series about reviews uh of TV show finales. And one of the reviews was of the Cullen hot potato, which had at that time become the celebrity hot potato, which is never a good sign, right?
Right.
Um, and really interesting insights also about how uh, even someone like Bill Cullen just couldn't quite save that game at that time with those celebrities.
Yeah, that's very true. And what's funny? It brings me full circle because the reason why I had mentioned Bill Cullen in the book,
Yeah, yes,
we were
yeah.
talking about Milton Berle. So there's a story in Quizmaster a little bit later because we're in Hot Potato era. So this is like the
Mhm.
last few years of his career. We're in '84, I think, and it's Celebrity Hot Potato. There's 1 week where it's all famous TV funny people, and
Mhm.
on the panel is Milton Berle. And they explain how Milton Berle at this point in his career was a little washed up, maybe thought he was a little more famous at that point than he was,
Right.
wasn't really in demand, and was also a bit of a prick, had a
Yeah.
huge ego. And they had talked to, I want to say it was one of the producers of the show in the book, and he mentioned how Milton Berle's presence was so grating to Bill Cullen. And you watch the show and you see none of that in Bill. You don't see that he's impatient. You don't see that he's just hating it. And he mentioned this particular moment. I guess they had gone to commercial. Producer went up to the stage to find out how Bill was doing. And
Uh-huh.
Bill leaned over to him and whispered, "If you don't get Milton Berle off the set, I'm leaving and I'm never coming back." And they go back to the show once the commercial's done and everything is just back to normal. Just
Hey,
that level of
yeah.
professionalism.
Yeah, that's amazing, and, like, you would never know that Bill would say something like that from his
Exactly.
on-air personality.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But that's just the mark of a good TV performer.
One of my favorite things to watch just from a cultural standpoint is the Gary, the Gary Moore To Tell the Truth,
Love
um,
that show. That's like a
and
podcast to me. I could listen to it and be
yeah,
fascinated.
but I love seeing Peggy Cass, like, absolutely just get so competitive, and
She's a badass.
And I love seeing Bill Cullen kind of his ears perk up because, like, something that is relevant to the mystery guest will be a hobby of his, like aviation or something, and it's so wonderful to see all of these basically, like, celebrity luminaries, interact and kind of do their thing. Oh, Peggy Cass, when she is wrong, oh, I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
she's awesome. That's talk about a show that was revived that doesn't necessarily I
They didn't do a good job.
just doesn't have it, just doesn't have it. A show like To Tell the Truth relies so heavily on having a good panel. You could
But
find
it
interesting
also was
people.
serious. It was more serious, I think, than would be acceptable on TV now.
Yeah, the
Like,
new absolutely.
yeah,
It was more, yeah, I think it played more to the audience's emotions than the original
yeah,
one did. The original one was just like you're meeting interesting people every day, and they're being
exactly.
cross-examined by equally interesting people who have had this massive breadth of experience.
Mhm.
You could throw any subject at them, and they can fire questions off.
They
Like
would ask you, like, a trivia question, like, a really obscure, and, like, you would just, "How do they know that?" They just do.
yeah. Oh, I love that show. I love that show. Chris, in closing, I'm having so much fun talking to you, but in closing, tell me about how you reflect on your experience as a contestant on Wheel of Fortune. When you look back on the experience and look back on the being on TV and the money and the
Mhm.
meeting Pat and Van and doing that whole thing.
Yeah.
What do you feel when you think about those experiences?
Um, I feel like at some point in my life, I was destined to be on a game show. I just had to be on one because of the way that my life has gone and the interests that I've had. And I'm glad that I can continue that in my research. And I hope that I can continue it at some point being a contestant. But I really have never been that wowed by a lot of things. But Wheel of Fortune, that experience and subsequent readings and conversations have just captivated me in a way that most other subjects have not. And I'm really grateful for that experience. And I will say, I mean, Vanna, please give me your skincare routine and your diet, please. I mean, just amazing meeting her and so gracious and so nice. And Pat was wonderful as well. And it was kind of a little brush with celebrity that not a lot of people get to have. And I'm very grateful that I had that.
Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Christian Carrion, from my studio in beautiful downtown Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. Co-executive producer Cory Anotado. Researcher Chuck Donegan. This has been a production of BuzzerBlog, the most popular game show website in the world, in partnership with the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. For more information, visit museumofplay.org. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Christian Carrion. Good night. Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99, download the free Bonus Round app on iOS, Android, and Roku, and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. In a world where game show imperfections go unchecked, where judgment calls are questionable, and where clocks tick with unsynced inaccuracy, there is but one elite force to investigate it all. Armed with the latest in atomic electromagnetometer and gas chromatography mass spectrometry technology, Game Show Forensics is always on the case. Join Robert McKee and his elite squad of game show scientists as they dive headfirst into the most absurd depths possible at GameShowForensics.com. Adult discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury.